Hello, welcome back, Recapped Mystery here. Today, I'm going to explain a short sci-fi drama film, High Maintenance. Watch out and take care. We are introduced to Paul and Jane, a guy and his wife, at the opening of the film, on a lovely evening in their home. The two are dining, the table is dimly lighted by candlelight, and the husband and wife eat in silence. The only sound is the tinkling of cutlery as they slice their food. Jane glances at Paul uneasily and considers saying something, but she decides against it. Throughout the meal, she looks at him multiple times, trying to strike up a discussion to break the awkward silence. Paul, on the other hand, barely looks at her. His full focus is on his food, which he appears to be thoroughly enjoying. Jane wipes her hand and stands up. Having had enough of strangers, she approaches her spouse, picking up the bottle of wine on the table. Jane tries to start a conversation again, but he covers his glass with his palm as she pours him the drink. Jane is taken aback, but she remains silent. For the first time, Paul speaks up and declares that he does not want to drink. To sound less harsh, he refers to her as dear, but this does not make Jane feel any better. She simply reclines in her seat, apparently upset by her husband's lack of concern. She speaks for the first time and informs him that it is their wedding anniversary, asking him to relax and enjoy the moment. Hearing this, Paul puts down his fork and looks her down, plainly unhappy by all the chatting when he could be enjoying his dinner in solitude. He merely states that he is unable to drink since he has work the next day. Jane sighs in frustration when her spouse fails to explain further. To compensate for his lack of drinking, she consumes a whole glass of wine while maintaining eye contact with him. She sighs and sets the glass down, proud of herself for resisting. Still, Paul doesn't say anything to comment on the fact, so she refills the glass. Paul tells her that the asparagus she made for dinner is quite tender before she can finish it. In one final attempt to incite a heated debate, Jane asserts that asparagus is an aphrodisiac, a meal that boosts sexual desire and pleasure. The wife is expecting an interesting response from him but is disappointed when he asks where she heard that. She stammers and claims to have heard it from someone. Jane appeared to have become uneasy following the inquiry. She hastily puts food in her mouth to refrain from talking, but her husband notices. Paul does not press her more, and they return to their normal routine. Only a few seconds later, he addresses her as dear and inquires about her day. Jane has reached her breaking point. When her rage gets the better of her, she jumps up and hurls her freshly filled glass of wine in Paul's face. She has had enough of his casual and uptight behavior and urges him to shut up and have a drink for once. She also remarks that since he is merely a computer analyst and not a surgeon, nothing will change if he takes a glass of wine on a special occasion. Despite her screams, Paul remains calm and composed. The fact that his face is smeared with wine does not appear to concern him. Jane asks him to rest for the first time in his life. The spouse completely ignores her and pulls out his case of smokes to smoke. Jane, who is already enraged, bursts into tears when she sees him put a cigarette to his mouth. She warns him not to smoke, but this does not deter the husband. He lights the cigarette and takes a big inhale, which causes Jane to rise up and remove the cigarette from his lips. She claims ownership of the house, thus he must comply with her wishes. She places the cigarette in an ashtray, but as she turns back, Paul has lighted another one. The spouse expects another glass of wine to be poured into his face, but it never arrives. Jane, much to his astonishment, composes herself and takes her seat. She cynically encourages him to continue, claiming that passive smoking is just what she wanted as an anniversary present. When Paul does not respond, she continues to speak to fill the silence. Jane believes that on an average day, she only gets to have awkward discussions with her spouse. She jokingly adds that if she's very lucky, she might get a brief mechanical sexual encounter with him. Paul's feelings are hurt by the remark, and he finally expresses emotion on his face. He looks at her with sad eyes, which takes Jane back from her rage. She expresses regret for expressing that. She approaches him and sits on his lap, attempting to console him like a child. She swears she didn't mean what she said, but Paul isn't so gullible as to believe her. Jane hugs him and runs her hands down the back of his neck. She may appear to be seducing him, but she turns off a switch on his neck. After that, Paul becomes limp, It is then revealed that he is a robot delivered by Jane from a robotics firm that offers boyfriend services. She takes her seat again, this time with her feet on the dining table, and wishes her ex-husband a good anniversary. After a while, she is on her laptop, searching for a new husband on the website of the robotic company. She discovers the one she likes after some time of seeking a man who is athletic and far more intriguing than the current one. She phones the corporation and expresses her dissatisfaction with the model of man she owns. The operator apologizes for the inconvenience and inquires as to what trouble she is experiencing. Jane thinks Paul lacks ambition and a sense of adventure, and that he is simply too much of a robot to be a good spouse. The operator states that lack of ambition is a typical problem with the robot series to which Paul belongs. She asks Jane what features she would like her updated husband to have. Jane expresses a desire for a more athletic partner who is either a rock climber or a masseur. She examines a reference photo and requests a man with a shorter beard and blonde hair. Jane waits for the same night delivery after supplying all of the information on how she wants him to look. Someone knows on her door only a few hours later. She peers through the looking hole to ensure that it is the individual she was expecting. When she opens the door, she sees a woman from the robotics firm standing outside. She is joined seconds later by another woman carrying the box of her desired husband. The staff remove the new man from the plastic bag and place him at the dining table. Jane is left speechless at seeing his handsome face. Despite the fact that he resembles the previous Paul, albeit a little blonder, they load the old man onto a stretcher and transport him away. However, Jane cannot help but stop them in order to bid her ex-husband farewell for the last time. She rushes up to him and softly kisses him on the lips, saddened that she must let him leave but relieved that she now has a better husband. Following that, she removes his wedding ring and hands him over to the worker. She then carries the ring inside the house and forces her new spouse to wear it. Because the updated Paul already has his old memories, Jane will not have to bother introducing herself and starting their relationship from the beginning. She simply flips on his switch and continues eating supper as she did with the last Paul. Paul, who has been improved, awakens and takes his first bite of food. Jane waits for him to respond, but he does not. She, on the other hand, does not appear to be disappointed. She offers him a drink of wine, but, like the last Paul, he declines, citing a huge climb the next day. He also mentions how soft the asparagus is, demonstrating how similar he is to the non-upgraded version. However, something changes in the dialogue after that. Jane begins to act servile, much like the unupgraded Paul. She confirms that the vegetable is delicious and ends the conversation. To spice things up, the improved Paul claims that asparagus is an aphrodisiac. He expects her to respond to his comment with something fascinating, but, as with the last time, she does not. Paul, she inquires as to where he learned that. She refers to him as darling and doesn't say much. It's almost as though Paul is sick of her ignoring their wedding anniversary. Paul gets out of his seat and approaches over to her. Jane feels nervous and perplexed about what he is about to do. He catches her off guard and begins to rub her shoulders seductively. He asks her about her day as she melts in his embrace. The previous time he asked her the same question, he was drenched with wine. Something has changed this time, though, because Jane feels frightened rather than angry. She responds to his question by claiming she went to town to acquire some groceries for supper tonight. Jane finds it difficult to concentrate on what she is trying to say as Paul gently touches her. As she relaxes in his touch, the stress she felt from dealing with the older one fades. He encourages her to continue, so she tells him about her lunch with her friend Dana. As she speaks, she can't help smiling at the notion of having such a great husband who massages her and asks her about her day. She continues to speak, proudly stating that she had spoiled herself on the anniversary. She is chatting about her day 1 second, then her demeanor shifts and she abruptly stops. From behind, a click can be heard. Paul is unconcerned by his wife's limpness. He, on the other hand, simply walks away. When the camera pans to Jane's back, we see that she also has a switch on the back of her neck that Paul has just switched off. Only then is it discovered that she, too, is a robot, because the updated Paul was too advanced for her. He found her dull, just as she did the former Paul. This is why all three of them frequently duplicated each other's words without realizing it. They were created by the same company, hence their main behavior is the same. Paul simply sits on the couch, smoking a cigarette and drinking a bottle of beer. He places his feet on the coffee table and turns on the television. In the final scene, he stares into the screen as he watches a football game. The end. Please subscribe to assist the channel, turn on notification and leave a like. Thank you for taking the time to watch. See you again soon.